So thank you everyone for joining us for today's webinar on Enterprise Master Data Management on the Microsoft platform. We've invited our Pragmatic Works partner Profisee to co-present this webinar with us to help provide an overview of Master Data Management, Microsoft's technology implementation called Master Data Services, and how Profisee's own software solution can extend the capabilities of Master Data Services to deliver an enterprise MDM solution. As we were talking about before, we do foresee this webinar being the first in a continuing series of webinars that explore the large landscape of master data management, so stay tuned on that front. We're going to have another poll talking about potential upcoming webinars at the end of this session. So before I go any further, let me introduce to you today's hosts. As I'm speaking, I'll go first, and then I'll hand it off to John and Pam. But my name is Anthony Martin. And in my role at Pragmatic Works, I'm a solutions architect, and I work with clients to help them optimize their data platforms, covering a wide range of topics from architecture and availability to enterprise business intelligence and even predictive analytics. So John, let me hand it over to yourself.
Hi. Thank you, Anthony, and thanks to Pragmatic Works for having this and inviting Profisee. My name is John McAllister, and I'm the Regional Sales Director for the Northwest at Profisee. Previously, before I joined Profisee, I worked at Microsoft as the Program Manager for Master Data Services. So if you see something in Master Data Services that you like, you can maybe thank me, and if you've got some complaints or some things that you don't like, you can probably point the fingers straight at me and blame me for it, and I can talk to you about why we did it and how we did it and when we did it. Prior to Microsoft, I worked at a company called Strateger, which developed the technology that was sold to Microsoft to become Master Data Services. So I've worked with literally hundreds of organizations envisioning, tweaking, deploying, and figuring out how to deliver successful master data management. And with that, I'll hand it over to Pam.
Hi, I'm Pam Matthews. Thanks for having us today. I have a very similar path as John just described. I was also with Strateger and worked on implementations and support of customers and around the product development of the product that became MDS, Master Data Services. So I also was at Microsoft about 3.5 years. And then came back to rejoin the folks at Profisee about 4 years ago to continue to extend the vision of MDS, and look forward to demonstrating the product to you today.
Great, thanks Pam and John. Okay, so let's cover the outline and agenda for today. So as we've mentioned, this is an introductory session with our goal to really lay the foundation for upcoming and more specific MDM sessions. So today we'll start by discussing what master data is, and then we'll jump into the value that an MDM solution can provide. From there, we'll discuss helping you understand what a solution might look like by reviewing a logical architecture, talking about features and functionality of master data services, and also Profisee's solution. And finally, at the end, we'll bring it all together with a very nice, tangible demo. Okay, so what is master data? Today, data governance and data quality are some of the more pressing concerns in organizations today. With so many systems such as ERP applications, CRM applications, off-the-shelf and homegrown line of business apps, all creating, updating, and referencing similar data sets, there's bound to be challenges keeping a single system of record for this important master data. So what is this master data? And it's probably easier to start with what is not master data by eliminating a large segment of data, transactions. Transactions are going to be the things like sales order, banking transactions, usage activity like maybe cell phone records or cell phone calls, or if you're in the energy industry, meter readings. These potentially rapidly occurring transactions are certainly important from a data management perspective, but they are not what is considered master data. Master data is going to be the nouns, that are used to describe a given business process. So in the data warehousing and business intelligence worlds, many of us are familiar with the concept of dimensional data modeling. Think of master data as really the dimensions and attributes in a dimensional model. The entities and attributes that describe those given events and transactions that are occurring in your business. I also frequently hear analysts describe dimensions as really just lookup tables or reference tables. Whatever label you put on it is just fine. Just understand that this data is worth managing because it is often reused across many different business processes. Any sort of duplication, discrepancies, or inconsistencies here is going to limit the effectiveness of any type of analysis that is being done on that data. And here are some more concrete examples of what master data is. So again, that reference data that describes given transactions or reference data. And really we can break this down into 4 main categories or groups, being people, things, places, and the abstract. The top level examples on people and things, which are customers and products respectively, are probably going to be the most common entities undertaken in a master data management initiative. And why is that? Because virtually every business has those two, and often customers and products can provide the most value to get right in terms of increasing revenue, decreasing costs, or even just optimizing the assets that you already have today. And we'll talk more about this in a few slides. But now I think that we have more of a high-level understanding of what master data is. Let's talk more about why it is important to manage that. And John, I'll hand it over to you for this slide.
Right. Thanks, Anthony. So as Anthony mentioned, this is data that gets used over and over, and so we'll come back to that theme, and we'll build on that a little bit in this in these next couple of slides. In the literally hundreds of companies that I've worked with and spoke with and helped to map out their MDM plan of attack, the actual reason that they were doing MDM was subtly different. But as I start to distill that down, there are some recurring themes here. The idea that I have duplicate records gets in my way if I want to compare data from 2 systems, whether that comparison is in real time or whether that comparison is in reporting, or inaccurate data is causing me some sort of regulatory burden or compliance problem, or it's draining my efficiency because I don't understand what one product in the product A in one system is actually called product AX in another system. And so as I go through all of these different examples, the common theme is that I can't coordinate information across multiple systems, or I simply don't have enough information about those foundational nouns of the business that Anthony mentioned. So I may actually have a good list of customers, but there may be 15 other payload or reference attributes that I need to track. So when I distill this into 2 reasons that I do MDM, the industry used to track this distinction very, very closely, and still does to some extent. But really, we think about 2 basic kinds of MDM, and we can go to the next slide here. Really, I'm either managing MDM for operational purposes, that is, I have 2 or more systems that can't speak to one another, so I need to have a mapping between those systems to make data flow or to enable the flow of data between them. Or I'm simply having a difficulty in understanding results that span those systems. And many people come to me and say, well, why don't I just clean the data up? Why don't I get upstream and clean all the data up, and then I won't have to align or conform data in my analytics. And that's a noble thought, but the reality is if I can't get an initial good view of the data, if I'm unable to build that, I probably don't know enough to be able to conform those systems in real time. And I'll cast my mind back, it's over 10 years ago now, the first time I actually did a proper MDM implementation. It was for a bank, and we were cleaning up their chart of accounts and their cost centers and their locations and their officer kind of level employees. And we were cleaning this data up and building the solution at the same time. So think about just a crazy project going on with development servers and business analysts and end users trying to drive them to get their input right. Really a pretty hectic project. And we were still in the development phase. There wasn't even a production server. But rumor got out that we had cleaned up the online chart of accounts and added some really good reference data to it and built a good hierarchy to this data. And we actually had people in IT asking us to build an extract from a pre-production system that we could FTP to the mainframe because the data was of better quality than what they had in the online operational systems, and the data was easier to edit. So the moral of that story is that that good data will find users. Users will come and find their way to it, and good data isn't always doable in the upstream system initially. Now later that company implemented some policies to start cleaning up the data, but simply the online and mainframe tools weren't easy enough to use and weren't good enough to get it clean in the first place. So when a company wants to look at MDM, it's really critical to figure out a good way to justify that decision and also think about who else might use the data. And we can transition to the next slide, please. So one of our customers had a data problem, and really that was a few people in IT and a few isolated business analysts' problem. There was no budget, there was no reason to globally fix the problem until the CFO said, you know, we have a credit risk management problem. We don't understand our customers well enough, and we don't understand their ownership relationships and their business relationships. And because of that, we're exposed to substantial credit risk because the companies that we're extending trade credit to, we could be very, very much overextended to a big group of them if the parent company were to become insolvent. So as we progress, and I believe there's a build on this slide.
Yeah, sorry about that, John. I actually did remove those ones, but I'll see what I can do here for you.
Okay, yeah, there we go. All right, that's actually better than a build. That's a custom build. So
Right.
Credit risk management was really tackled to decrease a cost of operating the business. But as soon as that was tackled and understood, that same data could be handed to marketing and to sales and to product management to begin to better cross-sell and upsell to customers and start to actually increase the top line of the business. Now, it didn't come automatically. They had to add additional information to the customer list to be able to do these things. But the foundation and the first reason to get a very consistent and well understood single view of the customer was paid for by the CFO to clean up credit risk or to reduce credit risk management. And the cost of writing off a single account more than pays for a complete MDM solution. So how do we go about doing this?
John, if you don't mind, I think I'd like to share an example here as
Sure,
well that
yeah.
I think people can relate to. So And this is where I changed it and didn't inform you completely on that. So I think I have a pretty good example here that can hit home, really. So, and that's around providing, again, that single view of the customer. So as a data professional, what I found is that many companies that I do business with really struggle to manage the data, my data, and based on either the type of channel that I enter into business with them, or maybe even the store locations that I visit for them. And as I said, being a data professional, I expect the companies that I do business with to do better at this. And when they don't do a good job, it really drives me crazy. So, for example, just a common example that I experienced last week was I went to take my kids to get their haircut. And at this haircut location, they offer this really nice feature that I can use an app or their website to let them know that I'm planning to come in. So this gets our names on the list, and it reduces our wait time when we get to the store. But a few problems arise from this application, though. One is that the app uses your name and phone number to store your profile information. And, well, sometime in the past I've registered under the name Anthony Martin, and another time I've registered under the name Tony Martin. So one of these customer entries in their system knows about all my children, but the other one only knows about one of them. So another problem that arises similar to this is that their system stores how each child likes to have their haircut or their preferences. But as there's a few different locations in town, sometimes we visit different ones depending on where we are or wait times that we see on their site. But the problem is that these preferences aren't really kept in sync across the stores. So on more than one occasion, this has led to an unhappy wife when I come home when she says that she just wanted the haircut to look the same like last time, and I really just never can win. So I'm sure that you can relate to potentially another similar experience with the companies that you do business with, but how does that ultimately impact the goal of maximizing shareholder value? So if your business has the procedures, policies, and technology in place to get kind of that customer golden record, or that single view of the customer, you're more likely to grow your customer base by reducing customer turnover, and it's obvious that more customers should likely equal more revenue. But from an analytics perspective, think about this. What if the company was trying to increase their marketing ROI? Perhaps one solution to that is they try to do customer segmentation. And maybe in that customer segmentation, they're looking to offer promotions to customers that they feel may be the most likely to buy. Well, if that customer segmentation is in part based on attributes that aren't completely accurate, like, for instance, the number of family members in my haircut example, that goal of decreasing costs through more effective marketing might not be able to reach its full potential because of that lack of data quality and consistency. Cool. John, I'll hand it back over to you for this slide.
Thanks, Anthony. So when we think about the all-up technology solution that you might need to do MDM, it can become daunting. There are so many things that start to interact with MDM, and it's really important to segregate out what belongs in the MDM conversation and what doesn't. So integration and ETL is something that you use in MDM, but it's not part of your MDM solution. And if a vendor says that MDM is my ETL solution or MDM is my enterprise service bus solution, you should run, not walk. MDM needs many of the things listed here, but most organizations don't need all of those on the first day. And we'll break these down between what SQL Server has right in the box and what Profisee sets on top of that in just a second. And so I've warned everybody not to get too tied up in all the things that you may need, but it's always a good idea to know that the stack you're working on has a complete vision and has all of the things that you might ever need as you take your MDM, your company's MDM maturity and awareness through an evolution to fully mature and very proactive. So When I look at the things in the gray, those are the things that are in the SQL Server box, and we'll drill into those in just a second here. When I look at the things in the blue, those are the capabilities that Profisee bolts on top. This slide isn't to say that Profisee does always so much more than SQL Server. Actually, SQL Server has more than 100 person-years of engineering, and the platform is very solid. Profisee adds the things that take it from being an MDM platform to being an MDM application, so and an MDM solution. So let's look at what's in SQL Server. We'll talk about the master data services that was originally shipped in SQL Server 2008 R2, but really we're talking about 2012, 2014, and soon to be 2015. There'll be some additional investment in that from Microsoft. So the first thing about Master Data Services is it is a managed schema on the SQL Server platform. So instead of having to do a create table statement to build a customer table, you say, I'd like to have this customer table, and by doing that, you automatically get things like security and access control, specially built tables for being able to do bulk load and being able to trigger loads with a simple stored procedure that you don't even have to write, the ability to consume that data from SQL views. So the whole kind of, don't overlook the value of being able to do bulk integration or SSIS-based integration with your master data. The system is inherently aware of hierarchies and enables hierarchy management. It comes with a built-in versioning capability, and we don't talk enough about it. We probably won't touch it in this demo that we're going to do in a minute. But behind the scenes in the demo, we actually use versioning to be able to jump from one slice of the data or one snapshot of the data to another without really even thinking about it. Last but not least, there is the ability to do application-level transaction management. So instead of having to go to a SQL log to see and unwind a bunch of tables to see what happened, the system automatically works at the business identifier level, and I can see that Fred changed the customer's address from 123 Main to 123 Elm on February 9th, and he was wearing a blue suit. No, it won't say that he was wearing a blue suit, but it will capture all the other particulars of that. And so it's upon that platform that Profisee builds its MDM solution. And so what Profisee adds is, if we go to the next slide, is a more complete interface and stewardship experience. So a place where end users can access and manage the data more easily, navigate hierarchies, change values, import large amounts of data, paste large amounts of data, save all of their settings and save all of the filters and tables that they have open. The ability to initiate a workflow, so whether that master data needs to send a notification off that you need to fix something or that you need to contribute or you want to request the creation of something, all of those kinds of basic workflows around your MDM. This is not a freestanding workflow solution. It's workflow that's coupled with master data management. The next area is golden record management, so the ability to match, correct, merge, and ultimately find the best value for a particular thing in your business, whether that's a product or a location or a particular expense line or accounting system chart of accounts. Golden record management is all about the mapping of the various possibly poor pieces of data back up to a really good piece of data and managing that knowledge as you go forward.
So John, Anthony here, I think the matching experience or use case around golden record management rings true to me. I can understand understand that. How about survivorship, though? That sounds like more of an advanced functionality. Can you walk me through what that means?
Sure. Yeah, that's a right. Matching is a word that just pops for people, and when you say it, the connotation and what it actually is the same thing. Survivorship is taking the best values from those matched records and promoting those to the golden record. So I might have an ERP system that has the best bill-to address, or the best ship-to address and bill-to address. But I might have a CRM system that has the best address for sending a box of candy to my customer. And if anybody signs up today, we'll send you a box of candy, of course. The survivorship takes those values and says, hey, the golden record should be decorated with this address, with this contact name, with this product code, with this customer category. The taking the best data and promoting it to the golden record is what survivorship means. Did that kind of answer the question?
Yes,
okay.
Excellent. Thanks, Jim.
And to do that golden record management, it's often very useful to do some data quality work. So the thing that we'll pick on in our demonstration in just a minute is if I intend to make that golden record and match, I may want to correct a few things. I may actually want to force users to correct a few things or apply some rules for best guesses. And in the event of addresses and emails and phone numbers, I may want to standardize those or even postally correct them so that my matching process can be locked down to a complete 100% match, rather than kind of wasting all of my fuzzy matching magic on addresses that appear to be the same but might not. So if I can be completely sure that a field's correct, then I can insist that I match that identically. And so 123 Main Street is really the same thing as 123 Main ST, unless one of them has suite 55 and one of them has suite 52, then they are different things. So kind of getting those things locked down, getting each data domain locked down helps in the golden record management process, and those two things feed off of each other. So data quality and golden record management are inextricably linked. When we talk about application integration, Profisee has connectors for both Dynamics CRM and Salesforce.com, and our SDK enables you to easily do real-time connections between MDM and other systems, as well as federating multiple MDMs or federating MDM with other systems. The last bullet is not usually the first thing people think about, MDM programmability, but now that I've got all this data, what do I want to do with it? Do I want to be able to use this golden record management, this address correction, this matching service in real time with my applications? How do I want to kind of code that last mile of integration? And to that end, Profisee provides some web objects to build simple UIs for simplistic users, but also some very sophisticated high-level web services to enable you to embed MDM or the results of MDM into all manner of applications. So how do we do all that? If we move on to the architecture, the architecture isn't absolutely the most important thing about an MDM solution, but given that this is a fairly technical audience and we're mostly SQL Server jockeys, I'm assuming, it's good to know what is actually in there. And the MDS and Maestro applications are similarly architected. They run on SQL Server, and there's a SQL Server database, a managed schema, if you will, with an application sitting over it in IIS. And Master Data Services comes with an Excel add-in and a set of web screens for simplistic access. Maestro sets its services on top of those services and includes the kind of matching, the workflow event creation. We have our own desktop, which is what we're going to use to do this demo, web parts, forms for workflows. And most important, and it keeps dropping off of the slide if I look at that bus out to the left, the little gray bus, the ability to raise events when any data changes in real time. So I can integrate as batch-based as I want using the native MDS, or I can have very sophisticated real-time integration using Maestro's eventing and API. So with that all out of the way, we're ready to roll into an actual demo, and with that, I think we're going to turn the driving over to Pam. And so Pam's going to drive, and I'm going to talk, and we're going to maybe drive over some cones and into some parked cars, but we're going to show you this. And Anthony, please feel free to inject. And those of you on the webinar, if you have questions, please raise them or things that you want to see, and we'll get those raised back up and discuss them. All right. So in this demo, we're going to take some data from a fact table that I think all of you could get your hands on. It's a AdventureWorks fact table demo. And we're going to put together a dimension around it, and we're going to really clean that dimension and get a single view of customer. So when I look at this fact table, it's something that only a DBA could love, right? Because it's without dimensions. A business user would be thwarted and flummoxed and generally frustrated by the idea of these customer labels. Now, let's not sell business users too short. They may have a huge Excel workbook or Access database where they're slavishly trying to manage those customer codes. And for the sake of this example, let's pretend or understand that this data is actually heterogeneous in its sourcing. So I have sales records that have come from multiple systems. So those customer keys don't even really have a single central dimension, and we'll see that in just a second. So we also have dimension data for this, but we won't show it to you here in Management Studio. We'll start to pull it in, and we'll build a dimension around this dimensional data, and we'll start managing it and cleansing it. So let's go ahead and build an MDM entity. Now, we're first going to look at what this data would be analytically. Yes, Pam, thank you for keeping me on track here. If I were to put this data into a cube, I would want to be able to drill into it. And in this cube, we're going to use Power Pivot just for the sake of convenience, but this could be a bigger analysis services cube, or this could be data in a data warehouse, or this could be big data that you've put into your new big data solution, or some kind of in-memory BI, or some kind of machine learning type of solution. In fact, over the past 25 years, not much has really changed. The analytic tools keep getting faster and cooler, but they still tend to drive you to garbage in, garbage out more quickly than ever before if you don't have the data to provide context to those facts. So what I'm showing here is what a business user really wants to be able to do, which is to say, when I go look at my enterprise partners, I can see the sales for my Central, East, and West enterprise partners, and if I drill into those enterprise partners, then I can drill in and I can see Fabricam West, and I can see Everett Chair, and I can see Center Security, and really be able to navigate that hierarchically or associate any other attributes with it. So what we're going to do is build a dimension that not only has this hierarchical structure, but also enables business users to take control of the data. So let's go ahead and see what it would take to build that. And we could do this in MDS in the Excel add-in, but in the interest of not changing tool sets too often here, we're going to start just in the Profisee tool set. We're still going to be building an MDS database. We're just going to do it through the Profisee interface. And we're going to pull data in and build an actual model of this dimension.
Just drilling down a little, John, so we can kind of see what the structure is going to look like.
Yeah. So let's actually drill down into that. Can I see Fabricam West? Now I might have built some kind of report to report on variances, but I'm a business user now. So pretend for a minute that I'm a business user. And the reason Fabricam West, the golden record of Fabricam West looks so bloated is because Fabricam East is getting rolled into Fabricam West. So let's go build a dimensional solution and use data quality instead of hand labor to get Fabricam East into the right place in our data. So we're going to pop over to Profisee Maestro, and again, this is a UI sitting over Master Data Services database. This UI will just make this demo go a little more seamlessly, but what we're doing here initially, the building of this entity, you could do in Master Data Services. And we've actually created a model here for the Pragmatic Works demo, and it only has one version. And we have a customer entity, and if you notice, it's empty. There's no data in it. So the first thing we need to do is go get some data. And we could paste data from Excel. We could go over to the Microsoft Excel add-in and load data in. We could go out to a SQL Server database, or we could use the web services, or we could use SSIS and fill staging. But in this instance, we're going to just simply go to a SQL Server database that Pam has running here that has some information that we're going to use for building this dimension. And let's just preview that and see what it looks like. And even at this preview level, you can see that I've got multiple records for Thrifty Parts and Sales. I've got these two rows that are from Dynamics, and I have another one down there from Dynamics AX with code 1802 right there. So you can see that this dimension is heterogeneously sourced, and I can see that there's some inconsistent spellings of the addresses. And with just a few rows, maybe somebody might want to arrange these by hand. But what if this was 20,000 rows, or 100,000 rows, or 100 million rows? We have one customer that has 500 million rows. Certainly you're not going to ask people, not even crowdsourcing, to go through and sort all of this out. You're going to need some help. So let's go ahead and import this and build a dimension with it. And publish that. We just, because it was small, we went ahead and kept it local. Now we're going to send it up to the server. So now in the server, there's a table for customers. And if I sort those by name, I can quickly see that there's some things that appear to be duplicates. But if I focus on a pair of things like Barton Security there, I can see that the streets are inconsistently punctuated. If I could get those streets punctuated the same way, then I could focus my fuzzy matching more confidently on the idea that Barton Security on Ashford Dunwoody, RD, and Road, and ROAD are the same thing. And I could focus my matching on the idea that Barton Security and Barton Security Inc. are the same thing without being destabilized by the difference in how the address is punctuated. This, by the way, is also a place where, given authority, an end user could edit this data, sort it, save the arrangement, edit a hierarchy. In fact, I think we do have a hierarchical view of this. And if I look at it, this is the thing that I want to see in actually as the dimension in my power pivot, and we are actually wired directly to this thing. And if we go somewhere that won't impact the demo, like if we go to OEM partners, and we say that Thrifty Parts and Sales actually belongs in OEM partners East, we can drag that and drop that, given the authority, and the region for that record was changed. A transaction was recorded for it, so we can even see that transaction, I believe. And we can also see the business rules related to it. So what it says here is that it was changed from region 10 to region 11. And if I switch back to OEM Partners West, because I thought I saw a business rule violation there, I can see that N-Bike Company has some validation problems. It doesn't have a company type, and it doesn't have an email address. And so a data steward might simply look at a tabular list of these and go clean these things up to improve their analytics. So if I'm doing analytics by company type, clearly the N-Bike Company isn't going to be reflected correctly because its company type is null. And look at that. Pam's even going to fix that for me because she's the expert data steward and knows that they're a specialty shop. And publish, and we're done. Okay. But what this didn't do is it didn't address the duplicate records. And I apologize in advance because we pulled a little bit of a cooking show trick on you. We're showing you the master records. And can we actually drill into the Fabricam master records? So when I see Fabricam, I've built a hierarchy that says I've got this master record where I've survived all the best information up to the master record, but I've built it up of these East and West records, which is incorrect. So now let's talk about how we fix this East and West thing. So the first thing that we would do to fix that is we'd like to standardize the addresses. So we're going to go ahead and get these addresses standardized, and we do this using address verification. And there's kind of many layers to address verification, and there's some additional services that parse out names and emails and phone numbers. But at the heart of it, what we're doing, and this is now the Profisee solution, this isn't in the Microsoft capability. At the heart of it, what we're doing is we're calling a web service to standardize the address. And this particular service is like putting your finger on a map and saying, if you give me this address, I'll get it all spelled correctly, I'll get it all abbreviated correctly, I'll tell you the latitude and longitude, and with that output of full standard address, I can then do comparisons very, very correctly and easily. And so this is simply the input to a web service and the output that gets related to that input. So rather than having to go into code and configure a web service call, you simply come to this screen and we're mapping the source to the output. When we run that, we get some results, and we'll just look at a particular row here. We could look at all the results and see kind of at the high level how that address correction went. But in the instance of this particular address, there's some issues if I want to mail it in the Postal Service because I've got a bad suite number. But the standard address that we want to compare to is actually should be punctuated with PKY. It should be Alpharetta, Georgia. The address should be 3009, and so everything is standardized. And if I put 10 different variations of this address in, they'll all come back to being that standardized output. So that's going to increase our ability to do the matching. And let's take that and incorporate that into a matching strategy. And Pam's showing the input and the output there. So now let's look at matching and survivorship. So with matching, what we want to do is we want to cluster records together. And in this instance, we're taking several sets of attributes. So first, we're taking the name and the standard address. And if we look at how we're comparing those things together, we're actually going to lock on to the standard address and insist that those be exactly the same. So those have got a matching accuracy threshold of 1. And the matching threshold is simply a number between 0 and 1. Whereas the name, we're going to do a little bit of a fuzzy match. And if the compound similarity of the two is above 90%, so it has to be 100% matched on the address, but if it's 100% on the address and the compound probability is above 90%, we're going to go ahead and auto-approve those matching groups. And for this example, that makes sense. If we were doing something with medical records, you would probably want to raise that threshold much higher. If you were doing something to support bulk mailing, where you're saving $2 or $3 or $7 per collapsed record, you might want to push that a little bit lower. That's something that you could certainly tune. But in any case, we're going to apply this strategy along with the two others, where we take the name and phone number and the name and email address, and similarly in these, we're insisting on an exact match on phone number, but using a fuzzy algorithm on name. We take that data, we match it, and we get a golden record. So as we saw in our cube earlier, or we saw it in I call it a cube, I guess it is a cube, PowerPivot. As we saw in PowerPivot earlier, Fabricam East got proposed as being part of this overall golden record for Fabricam West. Now, the Fabricam W below, we'd already approved that. So we know going forward now that anytime Fabricam W shows up, whether it comes from a Dynamics CRM record or an SAP record or a Dynamics AX record, that Fabricam W at 3437 Masonic Drive is the same thing as Fabricam West. But Fabricam East, maybe not so much, and as a business user reviewing the proposed matches, let's say no. Let's just say no, and let's get this into a new group. So we're going to create a new group for this, and since we did, and we didn't run survivorship here, we'll go ahead and force it into the correct region. And so now that it's in the correct region, our view, right, so now let's go back to Excel and talk about how we built this dimension. We built this dimension in PowerPivot by connecting to the view over the SQL Server database. And so now Fabricam East should disappear from the picture. If we drill up one level, we should be able to see that Fabricam West now has the correct sales, and our data is now all correct. And it didn't take any IT involvement. It simply took a business user dealing with a matching and survivorship type of interface in a business data facing way. So this was all of the demo that we wanted to do. At this point, I wanted to turn it back to Anthony and Tammy and broker your questions and see which of your questions we can answer.
Great. Thanks, Pam. Thanks, thanks, John. Let me see if I can get presenter rights back here. Great. There we go. Okay, so a couple things before we answer questions. I want to talk about next steps here. So as we've mentioned a few times, really the landscape of master data management is really a very wide, very broad, and there's a lot to it. So what we wanted to cover here was at least to introduce you to some of those concepts, the technology and the processes, but there's obviously a lot more to learn. So in order to do that, what you can do is you can check out www.profisee.com, their website. They have something there called the Master Data University, which does have a free registration with all sorts of great learning materials out there. but also reach out to either Profisee or Pragmatic Works and try and schedule a personalized MDM deep dive, and we can work with you to review your project, review your data, and brainstorm on what potential solutions might look like. As we've mentioned, we want more upcoming MDM webinar topics around master data management, and we want to get your opinion on where to proceed with that. So what I want to do before we open it up to questions is actually launch that poll here to get your feedback. Let's see if I can do that successfully.
And while we're waiting on that poll, Anthony, one of the things that that folks should know is that Profisee and Pragmatic Works are at a good percentage of the SQL Saturdays around the country. So if you've got one of those coming in your area, you should look us up there. Be sure to check us out there. We're both there normally.
Yes, excellent. Great point.
Yeah.
Okay, so our poll question, we're getting a lot of answers in. So the actual question is, what future MDM webinar topic are you most interested in seeing? We have an option out there for building an MDM business case, another for MDM matching and data quality, a third on MDM workflow and integration patterns, and then the final one on Master Data Services 101. Leave it open for another 10 seconds or so.
I don't have any good 10-second jokes.
Nothing?
Nothing that I'm going to put on a recorded webinar.
Great, let's close it down. Looks like the majority have voted. And we'll share those results. So another even spread on the topics. Looks like the winner coming through is Master Data Services 101, followed by Master Data Management, Matching, and Data Quality. So we'll take that input into consideration in designing our upcoming webinar topics and presentations. So thanks, everyone. Let's take a look at what questions we have out there. Tammy, is there any questions we have out?
I do believe we have some. Have you implemented Maestro in the investment sector, and if so, do you have any case studies that they can look at?
So off the top of my head, I don't have the names that come to mind, but the answer is yes. And in fact, the foundational software, so the folks who are Profisee and the Strateger Enterprise Dimension Manager product that Microsoft acquired was originally used in banking and finance. Our CEO is an ex-banker, and two of our principals are from the banking space. And so out here on the West Coast, I don't do as much banking and finance, but across the rest of the country and the rest of the company, we do quite a bit in banking and finance. And look online at our case studies, and there should be something. Maybe Pam, do we have somebody from our side scrambling that could just scan those and point to that?
Oh, on the case studies, let me see real quick.
All right. Well, we'll come back with the answer on if there's something just web-facing in a second. But our pedigree is definitely from finance. Three of our first 10 customers were banking.
Other questions that we have open, Tammy?
Sure. Someone arrived late and would like to know what version of MDS are you currently showing?
We're using the Profisee UI over MDS 2012 or 2014.
Okay. Was the hierarchy built in MDS or Profisee?
It doesn't matter where the hierarchy was built. We were showing it in Profisee, so you can. It's a two-way street. You can build it in MDS and show it in Profisee. You can build it in Profisee and show it in MDS. You can build it in MDS and show it in MDS, or build it in Profisee and show it in Profisee. But we were using Profisee just because it's, a factor of 5 or 10 easier to do.
Okay. Someone says that they missed that Profisee site address again. Could you please give it one more time?
Yes, www.profisee, Profisee, and then look for Master Data University.
Okay, and another question is MDM a tool?
MDM is a discipline. The idea of MDM itself, Master Data Management, is a discipline. And though I'm trying to put 2 kids through college selling MDM solutions, the software solutions, the first thing I'll tell you is that MDM is a discipline. It's about the people, the processes, and the policies. If you don't nail those things down first, it's going to be a struggle. The second part is Microsoft's solution, MDS, is really a platform, and Profisee is an application or solution that sits over that platform. Hopefully I've answered that broadly and narrowly enough to the satisfaction.
Okay. The next question is, does Profisee offer in-house address verification so we don't have to use web services?
No, and the answer is no, and why would you want to use in-house is what we've come back to again and again. You have to download the updates. It's really quite an extensive thing to stay on top of, and so we've found that the web services mean that we can plug in, the best solution at the best time and always have it completely up to date.
Okay. How much of an FTE, a full-time employee, does it take to maintain such system after implementation? Review rules, correct data, and etc.
On the administrative side, between a half and 3/4 for a really big company, could go up to 1 or 2 people. Then the benefit of MDM, as we implement it and as we envision it, is that the business users are doing more of the day-to-day data management and data maintenance. So if you've got things today that you have in the hands of a SSIS developer, some of that may fall to a marketing manager or a finance manager or an accountant and get out of the hands of IT.
Also, could you restate the software that you demoed?
Profisee Maestro, sitting on top of SQL Server 2012 Master Data Services, SQL Server Enterprise Edition Master Data Services.
Okay. How does your solution compare to Market EDM and SmartCo?
I've been in the industry for more than 15 years, and I have not heard of either of those 2 products. So whoever's asking that can ping us individually, and we can talk about them. I can talk openly about what we do and hear what they do, but I honestly haven't heard of those two brands.